All right, what's up, mathletes? Here we go, going on the Unit 5 test review. So number 1, I'm simplifying my i's. So I'm just going to review here for a second. I is I squared is -1, I to the third is -I, and I to the fourth is 1, okay? So remember, we always want to group I fourths. And I want to figure out how many times 4 can go into 57. So I just do 57 divided by 4, which gets me 14.25. So that tells me that 14 can go in. So I'll just do 14 times 4. That gets me 56. So that means I have 1 I left over to get to 57. This will be eliminated because that actually all equals 1, which gets our final answer to be A, or just simply I. All right, let's look at another example of this. So I to the fourth, I want to know how many times does 4 go into 67. So I'm doing 67 divided by 4 on my calculator. That gets me 16.75. So that tells me 4 times 16 is as close as I can get. That gets me to 64, which leaves me 3 i's remaining to get to 67. These all equal 1. So our final answer is I to the third, which is -I. All right, looking at this next, it says plus in the middle. This is just simply adding and subtracting. So just combining like terms. So when I look at -3 plus 6, I'm just going to put into my calculator, -3 plus 6, I'm going to get 3. And then I'm going to do 1 plus -3, which is the same thing as 1i minus 3i. So that's -2i. And that's our final answer there. Again, number 4 has a subtraction sign in the middle, so we're just simply adding and subtracting our like terms. -8 minus 7 is -15, and 5i minus -5, so that turns into 5i plus 5i. Anytime I subtract a negative, they come together. So that gets us plus 10i for our final answer. All right, let's go ahead and look at a couple factoring problems here. So number 5, this is our shortcut. So we're looking for what multiplies to 30, but we'll add or subtract to -1. So 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. All right, so 5 and 6 are going to help us get to a 1 or a -1, and we want a -1. So our bigger number here has to be negative. So now this tells us that 5 times -6 is -30, and 5 minus 6 is -1. It's our shortcut because A is equal to 1 here, so we can just jump straight to our factors and bring our plus 5 with us and our minus 6 with us. And again, the order on these do not matter. All right, number 6, first thing I see is my greatest common factor. 8 is a divisor of 128, but if you didn't know that, these are both also even numbers, so you could have started with 2 and seen if you can go higher. But you can take an 8 out here, and that's going to leave us with 16x squared minus 1. This is a difference of squares, so that's going to create the same factor, 1 plus 1 minus. Remember, it's a difference of squares because I can take a perfect square here, first and last, and it has a minus sign. So square root of 16x squared is 4x on both sides, and then the square root of 1 is 1. And that's how we factor our difference of squares. All right, number 7, we are solving. I know that because there's a minus or an equals 0 at the end. All right, no greatest common factor here. A is not 1, so we do have to start by doing 2 times 4 to get us 8. And now I'm looking for what multiplies to 8, but we'll be able to add and subtract to 9. So that'll be a +1, +8 that'll get us there. So I Remember, I'm going to split it into 4 terms. So I'm going to keep the first term. I'm going to keep the last term. And instead of 9x, I'm going to put plus 1x plus 8x. So I just took these two and replaced it. All right, now we're at the split the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and split the middle here and do my GCF on the left and on the right. And I bring down the sign always, and my GCF here is 4. We've got matching factors that come to create one of our factors, and then the outer portion, our GCF that we took out, creates our second factor. All right, and the last factoring practice here is solving again, and it looks like we've got a GCF set up here. So I can divide out a 5 and an x from both terms, leaving me with 3x minus 1 equal to 0. And so now same as what we did at the end. Oops, sorry, I stopped early. Campbell. All right, right here, this is still equal to 0. So I've got to take 2x plus 1 equal to 0 and x plus 4 equal to 0. So if you can get quick at this, you can do it in your head, because I'm going to go opposite of plus 1. So that's going to get us minus 1. And then you're going to have to divide the 2 away. But to work it out, you'll subtract 1 from both sides, and then you'll divide by 2 for one of our solutions here. And then we'll subtract 4 on this side for our second solution. Sorry, I accidentally skipped that. So now we're going to do the same thing right here. So we're going to set up 5x equal to 0, and we're going to set up 3x minus 1 equal to 0, our two parts. And then we solve. Well, 0 divided by 5 is still 0. And here I'm going to have 1/3, and we get that because we add 1 to both sides, and then we divide by 3 to both sides. And those are our two solutions there. All right, so number 9, you're going to do that on your graph. So you're going to put into your calculator in your y equals both of those equations and do your second trace intersect, enter, enter, or left bound, right bound. If you need more reference on that, that was lesson 5.6. For your two solutions, there will be 1,7 and 6,2. That'll be where those two graphs cross. And lastly, solving using the quadratic formula. First thing we always have to do is have it be equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and add this x to the other side. So 12x squared plus x plus 12. We want to make sure it's in standard form. So my a here is 12, b is 1, and c is 12. All right, my quadratic formula, x equals opposite of b. So I changed it to a -1 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Next step, I'm going to have -1 here, and then I'm going to simplify what's underneath that square root, and that'll get me -575 all over 24. And a lot of times you'll see us just go ahead and stop right here. Oh, one step short, because I've got a negative in here. I'm going to bring that out as an I. So a lot of times you'll see us stop right here. Notice all I did on that last step, you guys. All I did was change the negative under the square root into an I outside of the square root. However, you can keep going because the square root of 575 can be simplified. You can take the square root of 25 and the square root of 23. So that'll simplify down to 5 square root 23. So if you wanted to go one step further here, your answer would be x equals -1 plus or minus 5i square root 23. over 24. Notice all I replaced was, instead of the square root of 575, I had 5 square root 23. All right, guys. Hope that helped. Let us know if you have any questions, and good luck studying.